A peer-reviewed article in the British Medical Journal was fact-checked by Facebook, which gave it a missing context label. The journal said that was false, and a battle ensued over who was right. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. For the past 2 years, medical experts have been telling us we're living through a pandemic, while others think we're living through a glitch in the simulation. Can someone please take the simulation out, blow into the cartridge, and put it back in? According to some, we're also living through an infodemic. Too much information and not enough credible sources. But who decides what's credible? Facebook had to answer that question back in 2016. When it was accused of not doing enough to stop the spread of viral misinformation. So it partnered with third-party fact-checkers, so that Facebook itself wasn't responsible for fact-checking. Which is probably a good thing. Facebook is known for facts about as much as Pete Davidson is known for chastity. But that hasn't kept Facebook out of the line of fire. Last November, the British Medical Journal, or the BMJ, published an article titled COVID-19 researcher blows the whistle on data integrity issues in Pfizer's vaccine trial. The article covers accusations by whistleblower Brooke Jackson, who was fired from her company after reporting concerns with some of Pfizer's vaccine trials. She was a regional director for Ventavia Research Group, which was contracted by Pfizer to run some of its COVID vaccine trials. Jackson said the company falsified data, unblinded patients, employed inadequately trained vaccinators, and was slow to follow up on adverse events. Wait, how inadequately trained were these vaccinators? Were they somehow less qualified than the folks giving boosters at strip clubs? Yeah, that's a real thing. Not the usual round of shots you get there. The article never said Jackson questioned the vaccine's effectiveness, only the issues she saw with the trials and the FDA's oversight of them. According to the BMJ article, she wasn't the only one who had concerns. Another Ventavia employee said they didn't think the vaccine trials had good, clean data and called it a crazy mess. Not very clean and a crazy mess? So, like booster shots at strip clubs. Now, to be clear, Ventavia only covered 3 of the 153 sites where Pfizer vaccine trials took place. Jackson wasn't saying all the trials had problems, just the ones she observed. But it still raised a lot of questions, especially since the BMJ is a well-established peer-reviewed medical journal.
A report raises some questions about the results from a research company helping with the Pfizer trial.
Now, among the issues in the British Medical Journal story, some participant identities have been revealed because paperwork may have been left out in the open. Other concerns include not storing the vaccine at the right temperature and incorrectly labeling some specimens.
Not properly refrigerating things, having no sense of privacy, and not being able to identify specimens created in the area? Are they describing scientists or my college roommate? The article also got a lot of attention on social media, and that's when the fact-checkers came in. The BMJ started receiving reports that people were being restricted from sharing the article on Facebook, or that they were receiving flags like these. The article has been fact-checked and slapped with a missing context label. Of all the things on Facebook to put a missing context label on, they went with that? What about the people I went to high school with, posting about how they just bought their first house? Oh, really? How about the missing context that your parents lent you all the money for the down payment, Jake and Amber? And it wasn't just that it got a missing context label. Facebook also warned people who posted the article that they could have their posts moved lower in Facebook's newsfeed for repeatedly sharing false information. Others were told posts containing the article were partly false. Lead Stories, one of Facebook's third-party fact-checkers, wrote an article to explain the issue. It said the British Medical Journal did not reveal disqualifying and ignored reports of flaws in Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine trials. Now, if you're thinking, wait, I don't think that's what the BMJ article said, you're right, it didn't. All it said was that the report raised questions about data integrity and regulatory oversight. Lead stories reassured readers that the trial results were solid and that the vaccine is both safe and effective. That is, according to Pfizer and the FDA and Ventavia, which, of course, the BMJ article never questioned. You could argue that someone reading the article might come away with that conclusion, but that's not what the article said. Lead stories also questioned the credibility of the whistleblower. For example, it said she holds a certificate in clinical trial auditing from Barnett International, which offers a 30-hour course. Lead story seems to be implying that she only took a 30-hour course before she got the job. But was that really the case? I feel like that's missing context. Because the BMJ article says Jackson came to Ventavia with 15 years of clinical research behind her. And then came the really weird part. Towards the end of the article, they stated that on Twitter, Jackson does not express unreserved support for COVID vaccines. They listed some tweets to prove their point, including one where she seemed to agree with vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. In another tweet, she appeared critical of Biden's OSHA vaccine mandate. So let me get this straight. If someone doesn't express unreserved support for COVID vaccines, that means they're sus? Do we all need to pledge our loyalty to the vaccine gods before we make a Twitter post for fear of getting zapped by the lightning bolts of fact checkers? The only thing I find sus about her is the fact that she still uses Twitter. Anybody still on that platform is at least a little crazy, including me. The BMJ took issue with the fact checkers' claims and fought back. I'll tell you how after the break. I'd say welcome back, but I have a feeling YouTube might not have put an ad in a video like this, which is why we rely on fans like you to support us on the crowdfunding website Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/AmericaUncovered to help us keep the show going. After discovering the missing context label on their article, the British Medical Journal was not pleased. And in good medical journal fashion, they published a rebuttal, which is unlike bad medical journal fashion, aka challenging the fact checkers to a knife fight. The BMJ also contacted the fact checker, Lead Stories, to appeal the fact check label. Lead Stories rejected that appeal. And the editor-in-chief of Lead Stories told the BMJ that if they had an issue with Facebook's messaging about their rating system, they needed to take it up with Facebook. Way to pass the buck, fact checker. You're not nearly as cool as your uncle, Chubby Checker. So the BMJ also contacted Facebook, which blamed its third-party fact checkers. I mean, why have third-party fact checkers if you can't blame them when things hit the fan? Then, the BMJ went straight to the top. It published an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg, asking him to correct the fact check label. It said the article was published following legal review, external peer review, and subject to the BMJ's usual high-level editorial oversight and review. It accused the Lead Stories fact checker article of being inaccurate, incompetent, and irresponsible. Ouch! I think a knife fight would have actually been less cutting. The BMJ listed a number of objections, but to sum it up, they said the fact checkers needed fact checkers because they had their facts wrong, like calling the British Medical Journal a news blog. If someone called me a news blog, I'd definitely challenge them to a knife fight. Anyway, I'll include a link to the letter in the description below so you can read the full thing. As far as we know, Zuckerberg never got back to them or did anything about it. Lead Stories, on the other hand, responded with this article the next day. It was a dodge-block encounter. Lead Stories accused the BMJ of using inaccurate scare headline and ramped up the attacks on the whistleblower's character, saying that she was not a lab-coated scientist. Way to criticize a woman based on what she's wearing, Lead Stories. Not very #feminist of you. They also pointed out that the BMJ had not published any of the dozens of documents provided to them by the whistleblower. And I'll talk more about that later. They also came back to the whistleblower's tweet history, saying that the whistleblower's public statements about vaccines give vital context to her actions. How deep into their Twitter feed are they going to go? What's next? We found evidence that back in 2014, she posted a Throwback Thursday photo when it was only Tuesday. The woman is not to be trusted. The rebuttal also linked the BMJ article to a viral story circulating around the same time that falsely claimed the CEO of Pfizer was arrested for fraud. It said the combination of these two factors lead to enormous engagement by Facebook users on the BMJ article. And they made it clear that one of the reasons for the fact check was that the article had been frequently used by anti-vaccine activists as proof the entire clinical trial was fraudulent and the vaccine unsafe. Is it just me, or does the missing context just keep growing? At first, Lead Stories said the problem was just a few tweets from the whistleblower, but now they've added the fact that another article was circulating on social media around the same time. And it includes things like the frequency of the article's posts, who's posting it, and the interpretations of the posters. That's a lot of things that I don't think qualify as missing context. And that's not all. I'll have more after the break. Welcome back, possibly from a black screen. YouTube doesn't like when we talk about things like vaccines and censorship, and it really doesn't like it when we talk about vaccines and censorship together. Last month, 2 editors for the British Medical Journal published an article titled Facebook versus the BMJ, When Fact-Checking Goes Wrong. Yes, the British Medical Journal feud with fact-checkers continued. I told you there was a glitch in the matrix. Seriously, someone blow in the simulation cartridge and reset it already. In the article, they called the appeal process opaque and detailed conversations with the author of the fact-check article and the editor-in-chief of Lead Stories. Lead Stories told the BMJ that the missing context label was the lowest flag possible in Facebook's rating system, and that the fact-check article did not call into question the integrity of the BMJ story, only the comprehensiveness of it. Which is kind of like saying, I'm not questioning your honesty, only whether you're telling the whole truth. Why are you getting so upset, you big smelly liar? Lead Stories said the label was created by Facebook specifically to deal with content that could mislead without additional context, but which was otherwise true or real. So basically, Facebook created the missing context label to flag content that is true, but that readers might not interpret the way Facebook wants them to. By that logic, shouldn't they flag every video of Mark Zuckerberg, since he's not actually an alien android, but everyone interprets him that way? But that isn't the end of the battle. Lead Stories published this response to the BMJ editors. It said their job is to look for stories that are viral and harmful, and it argued that the BMJ article was both. Not because it said anything that was untrue, but because people who shared the article interpreted it incorrectly. And more importantly, because the article was shared by bad actors with a questionable track record for accuracy. So if I were to review the fact checkers, I would say guilt by association is their biggest logical fallacy. That's like saying that dogs are evil because Hitler loved dogs. If you think this is cute, it's because you're a Nazi. This BMJ story is a prime example of how fact-checking has actually become narrative checking. The original BMJ story had nothing wrong or inaccurate in it, but it got fact-checked by Lead Stories and flagged and restricted by Facebook because they didn't like who was sharing the story and how these people were reacting to it. Specifically, they didn't like that people were questioning the safety of Pfizer's COVID vaccine. With this kind of logic, will Facebook allow people to report anything bad about Pfizer? Because that might make people question Pfizer's COVID vaccine. Like this Guardian article on how Pfizer is making record profits. Will Facebook slap a missing context label on this story in case people start wondering whether Pfizer's booster shots are just pandemic profiteering? And another thing about the BMJ whistleblower story that Facebook essentially censored. By restricting people from posting the story, Facebook ended up covering up Ventavia and Pfizer's mistakes. Mistakes that should be exposed so they can be corrected. and people can have more trust in FDA-approved clinical trials. That's still not the end of the saga, though. Whistleblower Brooke Jackson is suing Ventavia and Pfizer for defrauding the government under the False Claims Act. And as for those hundreds of pages of documents that the whistleblower gave to the BMJ, they're now public. They had been under seal for over a year until the Justice Department said it wasn't going to defend the case. Probably because they didn't want to get sliced up getting in the middle of this glitch-in-the-matrix level feud. But while the BMJ Facebook feud isn't over, it shows pretty clearly that fact-checking has its own issues. And if this keeps happening, people aren't going to believe fact-checkers anymore. Misinformation will be just another word for politically incorrect, especially if the Biden administration continues to flag problematic posts for Facebook. Hey, don't worry, that's not technically censorship. So what do you think? Do fact-checkers need fact-checkers? And should they be responsible for interpreting what we read? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers like you. Donate $1 or more per episode on the crowdfunding site Patreon so that we can keep covering controversial topics like these. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.